Have you ever experienced this? The light turns green, you step on the gas, and in that exact moment, there's a sudden muffled thud from under the chassis, followed immediately by a violent shudder through the whole car, like someone just shoved you hard from behind. As you pick up speed, every automatic gear shift comes with a noticeable jerk. The RPM needle shoots up, and even with the pedal to the metal and the engine roaring its lungs out, the car feels like it's stuck in mud, sluggish and completely powerless. Especially when you're trying to pass someone on the highway, that slippery sensation of the power suddenly failing to engage instantly tells you something is very wrong with your car. Then you pull this car, the one that's been with you for tens of thousands of miles, into a repair shop. But from this exact moment on, you are about to pay a massive price for this vehicle. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jared Min. Every day, I'm here, exposing the everyday secrets they don't want you to know. The car arrives at the shop. The service advisor expertly plugs in the diagnostic computer to read the codes, or has a tech take it out for a quick spin. 10 minutes later, he walks over with a printed estimate and a dead serious look on his face. The transmission valve body is severely worn, the clutch plates are basically burnt to a crisp, and the system pressure is abnormal. Right now, you're either looking at a major rebuild, or we just swap in a remanufactured assembly. You look down at the bottom line of that paper. $2,800 just for starters, and it could easily push $4,000. Faced with this wall of professional jargon, the average car owner has basically no choice. You just sigh, quietly pull out your credit card, and foot the bill for this black box of a transmission. But before you sign that paper in despair, there is a truth deliberately covered up by the entire auto repair industry behind that $2,800 quote. The vast majority of the precision gears, metal bearings, and even the friction plates themselves inside your transmission actually have absolutely no physical damage. This business playbook of demanding a complete replacement at the drop of a hat is, at its core, exploiting the average person's blind spot when it comes to mechanical common sense. They are taking a chemical problem that could be solved for a few dozen bucks and forcibly packaging it into an expensive mechanical disaster. So, why does a repair center equipped with professional gear never mention this simple chemical common sense to the owner? This isn't the malice of a few rogue shops. It's dictated by the $28 billion business model of the entire automotive aftermarket. The core profit sources of the modern repair industry are standardized, exorbitant labor rates, and parts markups. For a repair shop bearing the brunt of expensive rent, equipment depreciation, and payroll, spending a dozen hours removing and tearing down your transmission to install a brand new assembly is a high-profit, incredibly low-risk premium job. Conversely, if a tech merely spends 5 minutes pouring in a few dollar bottle of chemical additive to fix the issue, they simply cannot generate a bill large enough to keep the lights on, nor can they offer a standardized warranty on the long-term effects of that liquid. Using expensive mechanical replacements to cover up cheap chemical deficiencies has long been the tacitly understood standard operating procedure in this industry. This cover-up didn't just emerge in recent years. If you crack open the internal archives of the auto industry, you'll find that a similar crisis rocked all of Detroit half a century ago. Dial the clock back to 1972. General Motors was facing an unprecedented engineering disaster and a crisis of credibility. Before that, the core ingredient for friction modifiers in the world's highest quality automatic transmission fluids was extracted from sperm whale oil. This natural biological oil maintained flawless friction control even under extreme heat. However, in 1972, citing ecological protection, the United States government suddenly issued a total ban on the industrial use of sperm whale oil. Caught off guard, chemical plants had to hastily substitute it with synthetic esters that hadn't undergone long-term validation. General Motors filled hundreds of thousands of cars fresh off the assembly line with this newly formulated fluid. Disaster quickly followed. Countless new cars, before even hitting 40,000 miles, began suffering from severe shifting jerks and massive slipping. Furious consumers flooded the dealerships, and warranty claims nearly paralyzed General Motors' after-sales network. When top engineers worked through the night tearing down these returned, failed transmissions, they saw something unbelievable. The metal gears were perfectly intact. The mechanical structures showed zero physical deformation, but the surfaces of the clutch plates were coated in a layer of dark, sticky sludge residue that gave off a pungent, acidic chemical smell. The engineers quickly reached a conclusion. The friction modifier in the substitute formula was highly unstable and failed prematurely under high temperatures. This caused the clutch plates to starve and slip because they had lost the protection of that chemical molecular film. To salvage this warranty crisis that threatened to inflict massive losses on the company, General Motors chemical labs worked around the clock and developed an ultra-concentrated friction modifier supplement. The internal wholesale cost was a mere $2.50 per little bottle. Dealerships received secret orders to inject this red liquid into customers' transmissions, and a miracle happened. Over 80% of the jerking and slipping complaints vanished rapidly after the injection. However, once this immediate crisis was extinguished, automakers and the transmission rebuild interest groups immediately realized something the public could absolutely never know about this cheap solution. If everyday car owners knew that a transmission's terminal illness could be cured for just a few dollars, those massive aftermarket repair profits would cease to exist. Therefore, General Motors issued a strict gag order. The concentrated additive was classified as dealer-only and strictly banned from entering the retail market. It wasn't until the 1980s, as chemical reverse engineering technology matured, that third-party brands like Lubegard successfully cracked and replicated a similar formula. But even today, these chemical formulas that can truly save a transmission from the root up are still relegated to sitting quietly on the most inconspicuous bottom shelves of auto parts stores, destined never to appear on a service advisor's recommended list. Many car owners might wonder, since it's just missing a chemical molecular film causing a bit of slipping and jerking, can't I just put up with the uncomfortable ride and keep driving it? Why does it ultimately evolve into a real mechanical failure that requires a major overhaul? To answer that, we have to confront a core component in modern cars that is incredibly smart yet incredibly rigid: the transmission control module. When you closely examine a clutch friction plate acting up due to a lack of friction modifiers, you'll find its surface has undergone a physical change. The surface, originally full of microscopic pores meant to absorb fluid, has been polished by prolonged dry friction into a rock-hard, dry, and reflective glaze, much like a stone smoothed over by a river. At this point, the chemical molecular film has completely collapsed. When this happens, the TCM computer in a modern car acutely detects the speed difference between the input and output shafts via sensors. In other words, it detects slipping. But the computer's underlying logic is extremely one-dimensional. It doesn't know that the fluid is missing its friction modifier. It only arrives at one conclusion: the hydraulic system pressure isn't high enough, so the clutches aren't clamping tight. To compensate for this slip, the TCM immediately fires off commands to the solenoids, crank up the hydraulic line pressure across the entire transmission, attempting to use sheer physical brute force to clamp down on those slipping clutch plates. This is the truly fatal vicious cycle. It is exactly this abnormally high pressure, forcibly applied by the computer day in and day out, that runs rampant inside the transmission. The ultra-high hydraulic pressure constantly batters the fragile rubber seals and perpetually stresses the valve body passages, ultimately causing the seals to blow out completely and the valve body metal to suffer excessive wear. A microscopic oil film issue that could have been fixed with a $3 chemical reagent is, under the computer's blind high-pressure compensation, forcefully driven into a genuine multi-thousand-dollar mechanical catastrophe. This means that between the very first time you feel the car shift roughly and the moment the transmission is totally destroyed by the computer's high pressure, there exists an incredibly precious and irreversible golden rescue window. During this window of a few thousand miles, the metal components of your transmission are actually still perfectly fine. They are simply anxiously waiting for a molecular level resupply. As long as you can add the correct friction modifier in time, before any physical trauma occurs to the mechanics, the highly concentrated active molecules will re-establish an even protective film across the clutch surfaces. Once the grip is restored and the slipping vanishes, the TCM computer automatically cancels the alarm and dials that lethal high pressure back down to normal factory specs. Saving a multi-thousand-dollar overhaul from the molecular level sounds unbelievable, but it is strictly grounded in the laws of chemistry and mechanics. Sadly, the vast majority of car owners miss this rescue period in their panic and surrender their vehicles to the exorbitant repair system. If you don't want to repeat their mistakes, the following hands-on steps are the key to taking back control. When you notice your vehicle starting to jerk abnormally, and you've confirmed via the dipstick that the fluid hasn't completely carbonized and burned, skip the repair shop and head straight to a nearby auto parts store. Standing before the dazzling array of additives on the shelf, you must stay sharp, adamantly avoid those cheap ultra-thick thickeners with stop-slip plastered across the packaging. These products contain solvents designed to swell rubber seals. They are end-of-life remedies meant for severe leaks. If poured into a precision modern transmission, they will only rapidly clog hydraulic passages finer than a needlepoint, accelerating its death. What you need to look for is Lubegard, packaged in a slender red bottle, or Lucas brand transmission fix. Make sure you identify these genuine friction modifiers that actually contain high molecular ester particles capable of repairing that molecular film. Once you buy it and take it home, the actual process is extremely simple, but you must strictly follow the details. Start the engine and drive normally around the block for about 15 minutes until the temperature gauge needle on your dashboard hits the middle. Ensuring the transmission fluid is fully heated up is the prerequisite for the chemical additive to quickly blend and take effect. Park the car on a flat surface, pull the parking brake tight, and leave the engine idling. Pop the hood and locate the transmission dipstick tube. Pull out the dipstick, insert a clean long neck funnel into the tube, and slowly pour the entire bottle of red friction modifier in. Be patient while pouring, giving the liquid time to flow down the walls of the tube to prevent spilling. Once done, put the dipstick back in place. Return to the driver's seat and press your right foot firmly down on the brake pedal. Next, you need to perform a manual fluid circulation. Slowly pull the shifter from P to R and hold it for 3 seconds, then pull it into N and hold for 3 seconds, then into D and hold for 3 seconds. If your car has lower gears, shift into each of them consecutively, holding for 3 seconds each. Finally, shift all the way back to P in reverse order. This seemingly tedious shifting process is designed to manually open up the complex maze of fluid passages inside the valve body, utilizing the oil pump's pressure to precisely pump the highly concentrated friction modifier you just poured in right into the microscopic crevices of every clutch pack. After completing the cycle, release the parking brake, take the car out on the road, and drive normally at a steady pace for about 50 miles. During this drive, as the mechanics continue to operate and go through thermal cycling, the active long-chain organic molecules in the additive will act like tiny magnets, firmly reattaching themselves to those dry clutch surfaces. A brand new chemical molecular film is quietly being established. You will acutely notice the changes in the vehicle. The originally harsh, abrupt jerking during shifts begins to soften. The hesitation upon accelerating gradually fades to nothing, and the power delivery returns to a tight, linear, and smooth feel. This tangible physical feedback is the most powerful proof that, through common sense and action, you have pulled your beloved car back from the brink of the scrapyard. If you choose to ignore these early warnings and blindly trust the lifetime maintenance-free concept touted by automakers, the price you pay will be incredibly heavy. The so-called lifetime in the context of the modern auto industry never refers to the physical lifespan of the vehicle. It refers to the warranty period during which the manufacturer is legally liable. Once you cross that milestone, the chemicals in the fluid have long since degraded, and whether your transmission lives or dies becomes a source of fat profits for the aftermarket repair system. This is especially obvious when compared to automotive manufacturing philosophies of the past. Tear open an automatic transmission from the 1970s, and its internal components are thick and robust. Despite looser tolerances, they were incredibly durable. In contrast, looking at today's 8-speed and 10-speed transmissions designed for ultimate fuel economy and weight reduction, their insides are densely packed with friction plates as thin as cicada wings. These precision components are highly sensitive to temperature and chemical states, leaving an extremely low margin of error. The moment the friction modifier degrades even slightly, they will rapidly disintegrate under the computer's high-pressure compensation. This isn't purely technological progress. It looks more like a precisely calculated, revenue-generating timetable, a classic microcosm of modern industry's planned obsolescence. When your car issues that first jerky warning, after tens of thousands of miles, it isn't rushing you to the repair shop to sign an expensive bill. It is begging for a simple chemical resupply. Understanding and applying this marginalized mechanical and chemical common sense isn't just about saving thousands of dollars in repair fees. It's about maintaining clear-headed self-defense in a business environment rife with information asymmetry. Starting today, share this genuine mechanical logic with friends around you who are currently stressing over repair quotes. Every time we choose to use scientific common sense to solve a problem and refuse to be swept away by blind panic, we are saying no to a profiteering system built on the foundation of manufacturing ignorance. Taking back our own wealth and power of choice starts right here, by unscrewing the cap of that red liquid with your own hands. That's all for today's content. See you next time.